The desert had gone silent. Not the kind of silence that comes after sundown, when coyotes sing their sorrow into the night. This was heavier, thicker, like the world itself was holding its breath. Jonas McAllister had lived on his patch of land for near 2 decades, seen his share of droughts, floods, fights, and funerals, but nothing had ever made the air feel like this. The wind had stopped. The dust didn't even rise when his boots pressed down. And that's when he saw her. She was standing by his barn, barefoot, a dress torn at the hem, hair hanging across her face in dirty ropes. She shouldn't have been there. No one should have been there. His ranch sat miles from the main road, past rock and cactus and country too hard for most folks to bother with. But there she was, pale as the moon, clutching something against her chest. Jonas slowed his steps, one hand brushing against the rifle slung at his shoulder. "Ma'am," he called out, voice low, steady. She flinched like the word itself had teeth. He saw then what she was holding. A sack, rough burlap, tied at the top with a strip of leather cord. It hung heavy in her arms, sagging at the bottom as though it carried more than any one person ought to carry. Jonas took another step forward, and that's when she whispered it, voice cracking like dried wood in a fire. "Please, don't open it." The way she said it, her eyes wide and wet, her lips trembling, made the words hang longer than they should. Jonas felt them echo inside his chest. He stopped moving. His hand tightened on the rifle, not out of threat, but out of habit. She pressed the sack closer to herself, like she was afraid the desert wind might rip it away. "Who are you?" Jonas asked. Quiet. She didn't answer. She just shook her head and backed toward the barn wall, pressing her spine against the wood. Jonas had seen runaways before. Wives fleeing cruel husbands, children lost from wagon trains, men hiding debts. But something in her eyes wasn't just fear. It was deeper. A kind of knowing. Like she'd already walked through hell and carried some of it back with her. He set the rifle down slow, leaning it against the well post. Hands raised, he spoke again. "No harm's coming to you here. Whatever it is you're running from, it ain't found you yet." Her eyes darted past him, out toward the trail, like she didn't believe him. Finally she spoke, voice soft, nearly swallowed by the empty air. "You don't understand. It's not me you need to be worried about. It's this." She looked down at the sack. Jonas followed her gaze, watching it sag and shift slightly in her arms, like something inside had moved. The hair at the back of his neck prickled. "What's in there?" Her grip tightened, knuckles pale. Don't ask. Don't look. Don't open it." But a man like Jonas, war veteran, survivor of raids, someone who'd buried his wife and a son before 40, he wasn't built to walk away from something like this. Trouble didn't knock on doors out in the desert. It walked right in, and you either faced it or it swallowed you whole. He stepped closer, careful, measured. "Let me help you. Whatever you're carrying, it ain't yours to hold alone." Her eyes filled with tears. "If you take it, you'll never sleep again. You'll never eat, never breathe without hearing it." Jonas stopped just a foot from her now. The sack was close enough he could smell it, an odd mix of earth and iron, like blood buried in dirt. He reached out slowly. She shook her head, whispering it again, more broken this time. "Please, don't open it." But Jonas did. His fingers tugged at the leather cord. The knot gave way easier than it should. The burlap sagged open, and when he peered inside, his knees gave out beneath him. The rifle, the desert, the sun above, all of it vanished for a breath as the sight hollowed him out. He dropped hard into the dirt, knees sinking, mouth open but silent. His eyes burned, his throat closed. Inside the sack was a child. Small, broken, eyes wide open though no breath moved its chest. But worse, those eyes were not still. They moved. They turned. They locked on Jonas as if the soul inside had been waiting. The child's lips parted, not with a cry, not with a laugh, but with a whisper that Jonas heard clear as a bell, though no one else could have. "Father!" Jonas stumbled back, but the desert floor caught him, held him down. He blinked, chest heaving. He had buried his own son 5 years ago, cholera taking him fast, and yet this face, this lifeless, moving, whispering face, was his boy's. Not as he remembered him in the coffin, but alive, aged just enough to match the years that had passed. The burlap sagged, but the child's eyes followed him still, accusing, knowing. Jonas clawed at the dirt to push himself away, but his boots slipped. The woman fell to her knees beside the sack, sobbing now, pulling it closed again, tying the cord tight with frantic fingers. The whisper ceased. The weight of the air lifted just enough that Jonas could draw breath again. He spat dust, sweat rolling down his temples. "What in God's name?" His voice cracked. She looked at him, eyes raw with grief. "I told you not to open it." Jonas staggered to his feet, chest heaving. He stared at the sack, tied again, still, silent. But the image burned into his skull. His son's face. His son's eyes. The voice calling him father. He'd fought men in war, gutted coyotes with his bare hands, watched his wife waste away from fever, but nothing had ever broken him like that glimpse. She rose slowly, sack clutched against her again. "You weren't meant to see it. Once you do, it doesn't leave you." "What is it?" Jonas demanded, voice low, hoarse. Her shoulders shook. "A curse. A debt. A truth no one wants, carried from one hand to the next. My father gave it to me. Said it came from a grave that should have never been touched. Every man who's opened it has fallen. Some to madness. Some to the rope. Some to their own hand. I thought, maybe if I brought it far enough, buried it deep enough, it might stay quiet. But it doesn't. It never does." Jonas pressed his palms into his eyes, trying to block the memory, but it was no use. He saw his boy's eyes, lifeless but alive, calling him still. He pulled his hands down slow. "Why bring it here? Why my land?" Her gaze hardened. "Because you're the kind of man who doesn't turn away. I prayed someone like you might help me carry it. Might be strong enough to end it." Jonas barked a bitter laugh, though it came out broken. "End it? How in hell do you end something that speaks with the dead?" She shook her head, clutching the sack tighter. "You don't end it. You just choose whether you'll carry it, or pass it on." That night, Jonas sat on his porch, shotgun leaning beside him, eyes fixed on the desert horizon. She sat inside the tack room, the sack never leaving her lap. The stars spread wide, but Jonas saw nothing but his boy's eyes each time he blinked. His hands shook. His breath came short. And with every gust of wind, he swore he heard a child's whisper calling his name. By dawn, he knew one truth. The sack wasn't going anywhere. Not without him. 3 days passed. The woman spoke little, ate little, just rocked with that cursed weight in her arms. Jonas worked the ranch, but his hands fumbled tools, his thoughts wandered. Neighbors rode past once or twice, but he waved them on before they could linger. He couldn't risk them seeing it. Couldn't risk them hearing what he heard at night. The voice of his son, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing, sometimes whispering words Jonas knew his boy never lived long enough to say. By the 4th day, riders came. Dust clouds on the horizon, moving fast. Jonas saw them first from the porch, and something deep in him knew they weren't friends. The woman saw too. She stood in the doorway, sack clutched, whispering, "They've come for it." Jonas loaded the rifle with steady hands, though his chest thumped like a drum. When the 3 men pulled up, their leader, a scar-faced brute with a grin too wide for his jaw, spat into the dirt. "McAllister," he called out. "We heard you got something don't belong to you." Jonas squinted against the sun. "Don't reckon I've ever taken what ain't mine." The man chuckled. "Maybe not before. But you opened it, didn't you? Means it's yours now. Hand it over." Jonas's jaw tightened. He thought of his boy. Thought of the whisper in the dark. Thought of the woman begging him not to open it. Then he spat into the dirt himself. "You want it. You'll have to take it." The standoff stretched long. Dust swirled. Horses stamped. Then guns were drawn. The first shot cracked the air. Jonas dropped one man clean, the rifle kicking hard against his shoulder. The second rushed, firing wild. Jonas pivoted, took cover by the porch post, and dropped him with a second shot. But the leader didn't move. He just grinned, dismounted slow, and walked forward with empty hands. "You can't kill me, McAllister," he said. "Not when you've already taken it inside you. That sack don't just carry the dead. It makes you part of it." Jonas leveled the rifle, but his hands shook. The man's grin widened. "Hear him, don't you? Your boy. He's calling you. Wants you. The sack showed you for a reason." Jonas's knees weakened. His finger hovered on the trigger, but the whisper in his ear grew louder. "Father! Father! Father!" The woman cried out from the doorway. "Jonas! Don't listen!" Jonas blinked hard, grit burning his eyes. He fired. The shot rang out, but the man didn't fall. He just laughed, the sound sharp, cruel. Jonas stumbled back, breath ragged, eyes wide. The woman rushed forward, sack in her arms, and screamed, "Then take me instead!" She hurled it at the man's feet. The burlap split. The child's face, broken and watching, stared up. The whisper rose, louder now, wrapping around all of them. Jonas dropped to his knees, rifle clattering to the dirt. The leader staggered, his grin finally gone, replaced with horror. He screamed once, twice, then fell silent, eyes empty, body collapsing beside the sack. The whisper stopped. Jonas panted, sweat dripping, hands shaking. The woman fell to the ground, clutching the sack closed again, tying it fast. For a long while, neither of them moved. When the sun dipped low, Jonas finally spoke. "What happens now?" She looked at him, tired, broken. "Now you decide. You've seen it. You've heard it. It's yours unless you give it away. That's the curse." Jonas stared at the dirt, at the rifle, at the desert stretching endless around them. His son's voice still echoed faint in his ears. He knew then he'd never be rid of it. Not fully. Weeks passed. Neighbors came and went, none knowing the weight he carried. The woman stayed, silent most days, rocking the sack, whispering to it like a child. Jonas worked his ranch with steady hands, but every night he heard his boy call. Every morning he woke hollow, his knees aching from the memory of the first time he looked inside. And here's the thing, the truth no man likes to face. Sometimes the heaviest burdens aren't the ones we can bury in the dirt. Sometimes they're the ones we carry inside, voices that never let go. So I'll ask you now, same as I've asked myself every night since, if someone handed you the weight of your worst grief, your deepest loss, would you carry it? Or would you pass it on to someone else? And if this story reached you, if it twisted something deep in your chest the way it did in mine, don't let it sit silent. Share it. Let someone else carry it a while. And if you want to hear the rest of what happens when curses don't die, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and keep walking with me down this road. Because out here, in the dust and the dark, stories don't end. They just wait for the next set of hands to open them.